Racing in Heat 2B is Tom Deeth in the Light All-Star. They have yet to get any points yet. Let's see if we can get a word from Tom before he goes out. What do you want to do, Tommy, here in this next heat?
We got to win it. We need the points.
All right, let's look at the rundown then for Heat 2B. The Squire Shop with 400, sitting pretty well right now. Tosti, Patterson Special, Light All-Star, Spirit of Detroit, that's Joe Ritchie, and American Speedy. Here we come now with the start of Heat 2B. Wait a minute, we don't have all the boats out there. I only see 4, but here's the Tosti Asti along with the U80. Here's the start of 2B. There's the Squire Shop. It did not start the race. Mickey Riemann is heading back for the pits. They've obviously got a problem. In the meantime, let's go on now and update you on the race. Back to the race, and in the east turn, it is still the U80 and Ron Armstrong holding his own, now entering the back chute with the Tosti Asti and Steve Reynolds on the outside. This boat, it was on the beach until this weekend after being damaged in Evansville. You saw third place, the Light All-Star with Tom Deeth, and again Armstrong with great acceleration moving down in lane number 1. The Patterson Special going against the Tosti Asti into the west turn. Ron Armstrong, a veteran of many races. This is only his second race in 1984. He's trying to fend off that man on the left of your screen, Steve Reynolds and the Tosti Asti. Reynolds, though, with that great acceleration, great cornering ability, is now establishing himself in first place as he completes lap number 1. Speed for the boat, 123.6 miles per hour. Third place is the Light All-Star. And here is Joe Ritchie, Spirit of Detroit. All right, Jim Hendrick, we've just gotten word, is down in the pits with the Squire Shop camp and Mickey Riemann. Let's find out what's happening down there and why they pulled out of this heat.
Mickey, can you tell me why you came back in?
Yeah, I have a vibration. I don't know what it is, and I had to make a big decision whether to try to run it or not. I hope I made the right one.
Back to the race. It is Steve Reynolds in first place in the Tosti Asti, the turbine-powered boat. In second place is the U80, the Patterson Special with Ron Armstrong. Into the west turn, Reynolds. This boat that had a badly torn up bottom after Evansville when they lost the blade off of a prop, tearing up the strut, tearing up the bottom of the boat. It is back in action now. And as you see here, a great battle for second and third between the Patterson Special on the outside, on the inside, the Light All-Star, the turbine-powered boat with Tom Deeth aboard. First place, Tosti Asti. Steve Reynolds in control as he comes into the east turn. The bridge turn here on the Columbia River on a hot, very dry day, about 85 degrees. He's in control. Ron Armstrong putting on a whale of a fight, trying to hold on to second place against the Light All-Star and Tom Deeth as they head into that same east turn here on the Columbia. The Tosti Asti in good control now, running an average speed of around 115 to 119 miles per hour. Here comes the Light All-Star. It looks like, yes, the Patterson Special is slowing down, and now it's a 3-boat race with the Light All-Star in second place. Ron Armstrong going dead in the water, as you see, now near the eastern. This is Jerry Verhill, the crew chief, talking with Steve Reynolds, that man right there. Much like the NASCAR or the Indy-type car racing, they can communicate while testing or while racing. Very, very valuable tool for the Tosti Asti camp. We've got turbines in first and second place here in Heat 2B in the Gold Cup for 1984. The Tosti Asti and Steve Reynolds hoping to get 400 points, which would put him in a tie with the Budweiser and the Atlas Van Lines with 700. The Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit, third place, Todd Yarling, co-rookie of the year back in 1981 out of Madison, Indiana. The Light All-Star in second place with Tom Deeth out of Detroit, Michigan. Back to the Tosti Asti on his final lap now here in Heat 2B. In second, the Light All-Star. This boat running much better and better. They keep improving throughout the 84 season. But the Tosti back at full strength. New aerodynamic design on the front of it. Trying to use new kinds of wings to keep it stable. Riding on the spots it's correct. They now have 400 points more. And they're at 700 for the day, winning Heat 2B, the Tosti Asti. Second place, another turbine. The Light All-Star with Tom Deeth and 300 points. So here are the standings for Heat 2B and the point totals thus far today. The Tosti with 700 points, Light All-Star, Joe Ritchie was third. The Patterson Special getting 225 earlier today. American Speedy still looking for points. And the Squire Shop dropping out, won an earlier heat for 400 points. Let's go down now with Jim Hendrick to the winner, Steve Reynolds.
Climbing aboard the boat right now. If he can get his helmet off, we'll get right in the cockpit with him. Well, I'll tell you one thing. You rode a pretty good race. How is it out there?
Well, it's still a little rough, Jim, but anytime you win, it's kind of hard to find some place to complain.
When did you know that the Squire wasn't with you?
Well, Mickey gave me a signal coming down the front straightaway just about at a minute and a half to the 1 minute gun that he was going back into the pits. I acknowledged that, went ahead and left him room to get in.
Turbines 1-2 in this heat, and now Don Poyer's with number 2.
Tommy? Tom Deeth, second place, the Light All-Star. Tom, in this case, you said you needed to go out and get some points because of not starting out in the first heat.
That's right. We weren't able to get started. Well, we got started, but we couldn't get on plane. We drowned ourselves out with some wakes and the way the wind was blowing, but we got on plane. Took a long time to get on plane. I didn't think it was going to for a while, but it made it, and the All-Star came through.
Now, one more flight, point-wise. What do you think you need to get into the final?
We've got to get at least a second or a first to get enough points to get to the final. If not, maybe we'll be an alternate, but we're going to run as strong as she'll go. I'm going to go for the win all day.
So now the draw is really interesting, then.
Yes.
And that draw has put the Squire in Heat 3A. They've got a race with the clock. We'll update you on that and more in just a minute. Don Poyer with Jim Henrik, Gold Cup 1984, the Light All-Star with Tom DeEath going out. And you see on the left, the Squire shop was repaired in time. Their crew has done it again. Here's the rundown. The Bud, the Squire, the Renault, the Light All-Star really on the bubble with 300 points. They need a big showing here in Heat 3A. And the boat setting up now in the west turn. Not all of them are out there. The American Speedy Printing failed to get started. Boy, it's been a tough day for Ron Snyder. That's unfortunate. They were the national points leader at one stage earlier this year. Here comes the start with the Budweiser and the Squire shop. The Budweiser in lane number 2. On the inside is Mickey Riemann in his customary position as they come into the east turn by the bridge. The Budweiser, first place. Trying to hold on to his lane is the Bud with the Squire shop. About a half a rooster tail back as you'll see him come into the picture. The Budweiser with great acceleration coming out of the turn and going down the back chute. In first place, Jim Kropfeld out of Cincinnati, Ohio, going after another 400 points. He's already won one heat. He was second in another heat. Mickey Riemann, he needs points desperately, wanting to get into that final. He has 400 so far after pulling out of an earlier heat. The Budweiser, though, with Kropfeld digging in with a skid fin, coming around the west turn and heading for the main chute. Look at Mickey Riemann bouncing around in second place as he holds on to that position. Coming down in lane number 1, Riemann, Kropfeld and the Budweiser in lane 2 and in first place. Tom DeEath and the Light All-Star. Tom racing on his favorite course. He holds the 60-mile speed record here on this course at better than 108 miles per hour back in 1975. You see Bernie Little, the owner of the Budweiser from the pits. Bob Stile, the owner of the Squire shop. Now, we have just gotten word that the Squire shop evidently clipped a buoy or ran inside a buoy just prior to the start of the race. He could be penalized one lap. We'll have to wait and get official word. In the meantime, you see Scotty Pierce and the U40, the old boy Oberto. But the Budweiser is in first place as he comes around the west turn again. Jim Kropfeld with 3 wins already in 1984, winning in Miami, winning in Evansville, and winning in Detroit a couple of weeks ago on that wild course on the Detroit River. Second place to the Squire. Here's the Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld. Mickey Riemann, second place in the Squire shop. Leo Boy Alberto conking out. Scotty Pierce, oh, what a frustrating day he has had with Fred Leland's boat. He will be back. And the turbine-powered Light All-Star, based out of Houston, Texas, and driven by Detroit's Tom DeEath. Milner Irvin out of Miami, Florida, Coral Gables to be exact. He is in the Miss Renault in 4th place. The Budweiser, though, in great control. What a great day for Jim Kropfeld. He has done an absolutely fantastic job of driving with a good shot at picking up his second win here. They did a little sponson repair after Detroit, the left sponson. A few other small things, but it is running as well now as it has all year. The Squire shop, the crew up all night last night trying to get it ready after that fuel explosion earlier on. Again, now Bob Stile has gone over by a local radio to hear the broadcast to find out if his boat has been penalized an extra lap. Okay, we do have word he has been penalized. Mickey Riemann has been penalized a lap. That will not affect this boat, of course, the Budweiser. He is in first place. Here's the Light All-Star. Remember, Mickey, oh, there's some damage now to the Light All-Star. You can see the chimney for the turbine go off. He's lost his wing. And now Tom DeEath, racing, as I said, on his favorite course, has to pull onto the infield. He has 300 points. It looks like his day will be done. That's a shame. Tom DeEath putting on a great show today. trying to get into the final, but his day is done. Here comes the Budweiser now, coming around and heading for home. As you see, one of the rescue sleds here, awaiting if there is any problem occurring on the Columbia River. The Budweiser, the checkered flag, Jim Cropfeld, his second heat victory of the day. The Budweiser. Mickey Riemann, as I said, penalized a lap, so he will go one more. This is the only other boat running, the Renault with Milner Irvin, so he will get second place and 300 points, and third place will go to the Squire. Here's the final order for Heat 3A, and the points are absolutely critical now. The Budweiser, good shape with 2 firsts and a second. The Renault should be all right in the finals, guaranteed. The Squire shop, though, really on a bubble with 625. As far as the other boats, their day is done. But the Squire's going to have to wait for the end of 3B to know if they make the final. I mentioned earlier that the Light All-Star had lost its wing, and this is all that remains, the vertical stabilizers. We'll be back with Heat 3B in just a moment. It's been a marathon-like day for Man and Machine, and now our final preliminary heat, featuring the Atlas Van Lines and the Tosti Asti, the 2 turbines. Well, will it? Here comes the Atlas Van Lines now with Chip Hanauer and his turbine-powered boat back into the pits. Chip has 700 points, so he's probably in good shape for the final, but you got to wonder why they're coming back. Yeah, he's calling it a day as far as this heat anyway, showing a low oil sign. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, we've got to go racing. And from high above, here come the boats now. All 5 of them, with the exception of the Atlas Van Lines, for the start of Heat 3B. Way out in front is the Tosti Asti, as you see on the right of your screen. Steve Reynolds in the Tosti Asti coming around the east turn. Already well established as the leader. There's the Kenny Toyota Volvo with Earl Hall aboard. But in first place, and a familiar spot for this boat today, Steve Reynolds having an outstanding afternoon in the Tosti Asti. Second place to the Executive with George Johnson. There's the U-80 in third place. Coming around the west turn now is Steve Reynolds in the Tosti Asti. Now, we've got Jim Henrik down in the pits with Chip Hanauer, who dropped out of this heat suddenly in the Atlas Van Lines. Jim?
We're going to have to find out. Chip, why'd you return?
I've got an oil level light. Same thing as like Evansville.
Oh, then you don't want to take a chance on hurting that turbine, right?
That's all we got now.
It looks like you'll get in the final. You can give it all you got then.
As long as we can fix the problem.
All right, Jim, and by the way, the Atlas Van Lines really has only an engine and maybe 3/4. Their backup engine did not perform well in Detroit, so they have their one hot engine that they'll now save for the final. In the meantime, here in our final preliminary heat, it is 3B, and that man, Steve Reynolds, in the Tosti Asti is in first place. And the Executone telephones with George Johnson, very quietly having an outstanding day today. They are chalking up the points, doing a good job of getting into the final. If they hold on to second place, they should make it all right. There's the Kenny Toyota with Earl Hall, co-rookie of the year last year along with Todd Garling. And back to Steve Reynolds as he rumbles along, getting a little choppy out there in the west turn, as it does most times here on the Columbia River. The U-80, that is Ron Armstrong. A couple years ago, it used to be the Vans PX, as a matter of fact. Ron Armstrong doing a good job. Back to the Executone telephones. They have run in every heat so far today, quite well, as a matter of fact. And back to the Tosti Asti. They soften the sponson a little bit on this new boat, make it a little less lively as they come around. They spent about 3-4 weeks on it, getting it ready for the Gold Cup while they raced their backup boat back in Madison, Indiana, and in Detroit, Michigan 2 weeks ago. So the Tosti Asti with their #1 boat is in front, as you see. Boy, Earl's going for a ride. Earl Hall and the Kenny Toyota Volvo. And back to the Tosti Asti. Steve Reynolds coming in and will pick up another 400 points if he gets the win here. That will put him at 1,100 points and tie him with the Budweiser. Beautiful shot of the brand new John Stodiger designed boat out of Detroit, that being the Kenny Toyota. Back to the Tosti Asti and Mr. Reynolds. Steve Reynolds having it his way. There's the owner of the boat, Steve Woomer, down in the pits. He's happy with his boat out in front. And of course the Executone telephones with George Johnson, one of the owners of this boat, along with Bill Worster and Jerry Oaksmith. There is the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit with Todd Garling. Earl Hall, in his debut, as we said, he drove the Squire shop for Bob Style last year. Right now they're trying to dial in this brand new boat. It uses Allison engines, and he's moving along here in Heat 3B. Back to the Tosti Asti, Steve Reynolds. A lot of work. They use radio communication, a two-way system, so Steve, while driving, can communicate with Jerry Verhill, the crew chief, back in the pits, much like the NASCAR or the Indy-type cars. A great way to communicate, a wonderful tool as they try to dial their boats in. Oh, look at the Tosti! Oh, he got a lot of air underneath it, but somehow Reynolds held on. Reynolds, the winner of Heat 3B, but he gave everybody a show. Here comes the Executone, second place and another 300 points. They're in the final. The U80 and Ron Armstrong, third place, but his day is complete. And Earl Hall, the Kenny Toyota Volvo. It'll be racing in Seattle next week. So here are the numbers for Heat 3B. The Tosti Osti and Steve Reynolds getting yet another victory. The Executone Telephone, they are in the final. Let's look at the rundown now. The Budweiser, the Tosti, the Atlas, my goodness, the Renault, Executone Telephones, and look at this. The Squire Shop gets in there with 625 points. Let's go to Jim and Mickey Riemann of the Squire Shop.
Well, Don, a very close call for the Squire Shop with their problems. They do get in the final. Mickey, I can see you let a big breath of air out.
Yeah, really, we just found out just right now we made it in the final. We were the sixth boat in. With the problems we had in the last 24 hours, it's really a nice feeling to be here, even if we are sixth one in. It's lovely.
Don?
And Jim, look at the Tosti Osti as it was finishing Heat 3B. My goodness, he had a lot of air under that boat. It gives you somewhat of a reminder of how thin that line is between a controlled hydroplane and near disaster. Steve Reynolds made it back to the pits, and he'll be in the final, which is coming up. The Gold Cup 1984 in just a moment.